Blending is a very key part in winemaking. We at Waterford try and make our wines individually as natural as possible, express the cultivar that we're dealing with, what we're seeing in the vineyards, what we're getting from our soils, from what David is doing in the vineyards. We're really trying to get that true expression out of the varietal. So when it comes to blending, what we're looking for is really harmoniousness, trying to bring different varietals together to sort of bring together the sense of places, the different places on the farm through one wine. And if I talk about the gem, it's a blend that really encompasses everything that we have grown on the farm, from vineyards to the natural fynbos, the fauna, the flora, the animals, the community that we have. And blending gives us a tool to create this expression in the wine. So Cabernet Sauvignon forms the backbone of the gem blend. It's the most dominant varietal that we have planted on the farm, and this is why we use it as the structure. So from here I use the various varietals that we have on the farm literally to form layers in the wine, to create harmoniousness, to create balance, to make sure that everything is in a place that doesn't stand loose from the wine. So at the end of the day, we're creating a wine that is expressive of balance, it has elegance, it's got flavor, and the idea of the gem is really to have the experience of I'm tasting the diversity of Waterford. Cabernet forms the base of the gem blend. Then we use the other varietals that we have planted on the farm to create the diversity. So Shiraz for me brings in a great sense of granular structure. It brings the floral, the perfume. It is a very strong component of the gem. It sits at about 20%. So there is a lot of structure, there's a lot of harmoniousness, especially when you blend it with Cabernet Sauvignon. It makes a very, very good connection. And then the rest are really quite a bit of seasoning components. If we're looking at Mourvèdre, which is a Spanish varietal grown on very rocky soils on Waterford, this adds, in my view, the sense of rusticness, the little bit of the wild fynbos character that we find in the gem. It's got an amazing aging potential, so it does help with that. It has a very soft, almost a sweet texture in a sense in its rusticness, so that adds lovely, I suppose, difference into the wine. Then we're looking at Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is a very classical varietal. What I'm looking at this varietal for is really a little bit of tension. It brings in a great sense of dryness. So if you're thinking about pencil lead, pencil shavings, it brings the classicalness back into the gem, and sometimes it can also help a little bit with acidity. Merlot, sometimes quite a difficult varietal on its own. It's quite an early ripening varietal, so the tannins are extremely soft. So it brings a lot of softness into the wine, even though individually it can bring and sound like a lot of acidity and harshness. In a blend, it actually adds a lot of softness, gentleness. It sort of fleshes out the palate in a very nice way. Looking at something like Petit Verdot, it's one of the smallest grapes that you do find, so it's extremely concentrated. Looking at the wine, it's inky, it's intense, and that's what it brings into the wine. It can sometimes be overly powerful, so I have to be very careful when using this wine, but it does really add just the drop or two of seriousness into the wine if we need that. Then the last two varietals I find the most interesting. This brings a lot of freshness, that cherry, the vibrancy, almost the crunchiness into the gem blend, which I really enjoy. So Sangiovese does that really, really well. It's got a very bright acidity, almost reminds me of like a lemon acidity, so it can be quite strong, but it's without being tart. Then looking at Barbera, this is a little bit more of an aggressive acidity. If you're really looking for acidity in a vintage, this is where I'm going to turn to use Barbera. And out of these 8 components, I think I can really have enough tools to create a blend that is not lacking in any way. Talking about consistency in the gem blend, in South Africa our vintages are quite varied, so we'll have some vintages that are classified as relatively warm and dry, so you find wines have lower acidity, cooler vintages would have more acidity. So looking for consistency, in a very warm vintage lacking acidity, the blend would tend to be leaning towards maybe a little bit of Cabernet Franc, bringing that dryness and the acidity back in, and also the percentage of the Sangiovese and the Barbera would be a little bit more. In vintages that are really cool, I would find quite a high percentage of, let's say, something like Mourvèdre and Shiraz, because these varietals tend to have slightly lower acidity. But at the end of the day, I'm also not blending a consistency in flavor, and rather blending a consistency in quality as well as the gem profile, what that vintage is as an expression to us. So the wine might be slightly different from year to year, but the consistency lies in the quality. The gem is a very unique blend. It's a blend of 8 different varietals, and on Waterford we have a great sense of diversity. We are situated on 2 individual properties on rolling mountains, so we have higher altitude vineyards as well as lower lying vineyards, which brings about the diversity in our plantings. So the gem is a blend which is extremely unique, not just in South Africa, in talking about the various components that are blended into it, but also on an international level. It's a first of its kind, blending varietals from very diverse regions. What we are actually doing with the gem blend is blending varietals that are common in 3 different wine regions in the world. The uniqueness of the gem is creating a blend that you won't find anywhere else in the world. We are using Cabernet Sauvignon as the backbone of our wine, but looking at Waterford, the diversity on our property has led to the growth of several other varietals. So looking at the vegetation, looking at the soil, I've realized one single varietal wine is not going to be the best that comes off this property. So looking at a blend, we can always create a wine that is more expressive, more showcasing the sense of place that we have at Waterford, which has led to blending varietals from various regions found in the world all together in one wine, which gives a very unique approach to wine, creates a very new style of wine and something very unique to South Africa. Leading up to the selection of the 8 components that we find in the gem, Cabernet Sauvignon is the most planted varietal on Waterford. This is not just one block of vineyard, we have several blocks. So looking at Cabernet Sauvignon alone, I have 18 different batches of Cabernet Sauvignon coming from different vineyards, different slopes, different row directions, and each wine is identical. So looking at creating the base, the blend already starts with Cabernet Sauvignon alone, and looking at the 18 different components and trying to find the best Cabernet Sauvignon backbone for the gem. The same happens with some of the other varietals. We have about 4 or 5 different vineyards of Shiraz, we have 3 different vineyards of Mourvèdre. So this has really come down to the final stages of blending the gem with the 8 individual components in front of me. And now we're going to see how these components react with each other to create the really perfect gem at the end of the day.